With all the reboots happening nowadays, it's not surprising that one goes unnoticed every once in a while. Thanks to DuckTales and the tragic school bus reboots, one series did kind of fall under the radar recently. That and it doesn't help that it airs on Boomerang, the place where Warner Brothers cartoons go. That isn't Teen Titans Go! Or Justice League Action. Give it time. With that said, I'm Toonamp, I'm Toonup, and this is Wacky Races. As most of us know, the 2017 Wacky Races is a reboot. And this reboot comes from Studio Reboot. Well, Warner Brothers Studios, but let's face the facts. Out of 57 series since 1990, 40 of them are reboots, spin-offs, or based off of existing properties. Thank goodness we have original current series like Right Now Kapow and Mike Tyson Mysteries. Yeah, thank goodness. Getting back to Wacky Races, let's take a look at the original series. The original series was produced by Hanna-Barbera and aired on CBS in 1968. This was one of the better Hanna-Barbera series at the time. It featured 11 different race cars in one wacky race each episode. Each car had 7 racers trying to win the race. But there are 3 standouts in the show. The best racer in Wacky Races is the driver of car number 00, the Mean Machine, Dick Dastardly. Yeah, he always loses, but let's look at it this way. Dick Dastardly always gets ahead of the pack, only to stop to do his sneaky tricks. He would win if he didn't stop, but then again, the show wouldn't be as fun. There's also his sidekick Muttley, who always gets the blame when things go wrong. Half the time, I don't think this dog really cares. And then there's the announcer calling the race, and calling out Dick Dastardly for his dastardly tricks.
The racers are hung up in a clover leaf. They may never get out.
Exactly as I planned it. Right, Muttley?
But how, you fiend?
It's one of the best back and forth relationships in television. It's basically the standard Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner series, if there were 10 Roadrunners. Wile E. Coyote spoke, and someone was doing play-by-play. And while we do get some glimpses of the characteristics of the other racers, the main focus is always on Dastardly and Muttley. But I wonder, why are Dastardly and Muttley the villains when everyone uses underhanded tricks in this series? Aren't they all the villains? Interestingly enough, even though Wacky Races only had 17 episodes under its belt, there were a number of spin-off series featuring the characters from Wacky Races, both airing at the same time 1 year after Wacky Races started to air.
Lost their blades? They've buzzsawed my barricades. I'll just have to find a better barrier. You know, I think I found it, Muttley.
They were Dastardly and Muttley in their flying machines, and the perils of Penelope Pitstop. Again, they only aired for a year before Hanna-Barbera moved on. Dastardly and Muttley is pretty good, because of the chemistry they have with each other. Not only that, but there was a nice variety since they do skits between 2 of the core cartoons. While the wingding gags do fall flat, the cartoons where Muttley daydreams are great. Then there's the core cartoon, where Dastardly and his group of misfits try to stop Yankee Doodle Pigeon from delivering messages, using inventions and schemes with airplanes. Again, it's a Wile E. Coyote versus Roadrunner type of show, where they keep inventing creative ways in crashing airplanes. I kinda wonder who Dastardly is working for, since he seems to be going after an American pigeon, yet his crew wants to vacation in Florida or Hawaii.
Get him, Muttley! Drat! He got away again! Muttley!
While Dastardly and Muttley was fun, the perils of Penelope Pitstop was interesting. Penelope Pitstop is an heiress who is constantly being attacked by her guardian Sylvester Sneakley. in the guise of the Hooded Claw in order to get her inheritance. But the Anthill Mob, another group from Wacky Races, are there to stop the Hooded Claw from killing her with exposition. Look, I know your animation budget is limited, but you don't have to tell Penelope how you're going to kill her with a banana-eating monkey that slowly lowers her into a pit of crocodiles with every banana he takes. Just cut the damn rope or push her into the pit. The Anthill Mob is kind of the worst since they are just rejected 7 dwarves. There's Clyde the boss, Yak Yak the laughing one, Dum Dum the dumb one, Snoozy, guess what he does, Zippy, who is really fast, Softly, I think that's the one that cries a lot, and Pockets. No idea. They keep focusing on the one that laughs all the time for no reason. What's so funny? Nobody said anything funny. He's just sitting there laughing. It's a constant chase between Penelope, Hooded Claw, and the Anthill Mob. It's a show that definitely wouldn't fly today because of the damsel in distress trope. It's pretty much Snidely Whiplash tying Nell to a train track and Dudley Do-Right sweeping in to save her for a full half hour. I'll get more on Pit Stop's characteristics later on, but I definitely like the Anthill Mob better in Wacky Races since they are a little sneaky and underhanded.
One little old thing before you go, Hooded Claw.
What's that?
Don't forget to deposit your fare.
Blast! I almost forgot.
After both series were cancelled, between Flying Machines in 1985, there were different variations of Dastardly and Muttley, most notably the Dread Baron and Mumbly from Laugh Olympics. The next show that Dastardly and Muttley were in, they would be the villains of Yogi's Treasure Hunt. It's pretty much a group of well-known Hanna-Barbera stars looking for treasure and Dastardly trying to steal it from them.
Hurry, Muttley, throw it in gear! No, not reverse gear, you nincompoop! Sorry.
Following Yogi's Treasure Hunt comes the sequel to Wacky Races, the Fender Bender 500. It was part of a series in 1990 called Wake, Rattle, and Roll. Fender Bender 500 featured popular Hanna-Barbera characters and Winsome Witch for whatever reason in monster trucks racing all over the world. And for a 5-minute runtime, the series utilizes each character well, since they were already developed in the first place. Again, Dastardly and Muttley are up to their old ways, getting ahead of the pack and setting traps. We spend a little less time with Dastardly, but that's okay. It's fun seeing the other classic characters. And Winsome Witch. Does anyone know what she was in? Again, Dastardly is a good racer, but he shoots his foot whenever he does his traps. It's a fun series, but it does have the flaw of being a little too punny.
Muttley, this is all your fault!
In 2006, Cartoon Network released a pilot called Wacky Races Forever. It featured the next generation of Wacky Racers. It was a nice mixture of old and new characters. Peter Perfect and Penelope Pitstop apparently had kids, and Peter is the head of a big corporation. There's also a villain trying to take over said corporation by, I don't know, getting Dick Dastardly to force the Perfect Pitstop kids to lose the race? I guess there would be a better explanation if this was a series. It was a pretty good reboot, and would have been a decent series. It was interesting, it was intense, and it was fun. And it wasn't picked up by Cartoon Network. Is it surprising that they didn't pick it up? Not really. The 2006 Cartoon Network Studios wasn't really into reboots as much as they were into original series. Unlike Warner Brothers Animation.
No, Muttley, we can't win fairly. We are villains, ergo we have to cheat.
However, there is hope in the form of Wacky Races 2017. So how did it compare to the original series and the follow-up series Fender Bender 500 and Wacky Races Forever? Yeah, if you were a fan of the original Wacky Races, don't expect this to be that. Now don't get me wrong, this is not a bad series, but it's just not, well, Wacky Races. and I'll tell you why. Wacky Races is about car racing, right? In the new series, there is kind of racing, but the racing completely stops for the show's plot. It's as if Wile E. Coyote stops chasing the Roadrunner so the two can sit down and have an Italian meal, or stops an Easter Island statue from taking over the world. They do this in almost every episode. And since they stop the race every time for their weird little stories, you have to have character interactions between Dick Dastardly and the other racers because this series gave each racer a fleshed out generic personality. Kind of. I'm all for character development, but because of the direction that this show took, it got rid of a lot of characters from the original series. Remember, the original series had 11 race groups. Fender Bender 500 had 9. The new Wacky Races went down to 5. And the problem is, none of these characters are really that wacky.
You dare to face me, you tail-wagging traitor!
I literally have no idea what to say.
We can never unsee that.
Let's start with the non-existing characters. The Gruesome Twosome. You have Bella the Vampire, who uses recycled quotes from the old Addams Family television series, and the Frankenstein monster, Tiny. Let me guess. Big dumb guy who is clumsy. Because, ha ha ha, it's funny. Hey, let's see how this works in real life. Hey, Tiny! It's funny because you're big. Wait, did I hurt your feelings? Oh, now they're crying. Well, now I feel bad. Now, admittedly, the Gruesome Twosome didn't do much in the original series, other than scaring ghosts and monsters, and being generally the creepy character of the series. But they were fun to watch, and they aren't too bad in the new series either. But they're also kind of predictable. They are also out of place since they are the only unique characters in this series now, since the Slag Brothers, Red Max, Anthill Mob, and the others are gone.
I'll fly my way to first place.
Bella, leave Tiny. Bye, Bella.
Oh, I may be ghoulish, but blood is thicker than water, and better tasting too.
Next you have Some Kid. Who is this? This kid isn't from the original series. Is it a boy or a girl? Is that Sherman from Mr. Peabody? That can't be right. He's in a DreamWorks series. Why is this kid racing in a hover car? Oh no. Not another one. It is another child genius! And it's another male child genius character. Seriously, I thought it was a girl when I first started watching the series. But a male child genius is just a tired old cliche. I mean, you have Jimmy Neutron, Mandark, Dexter, Toby, Lisa Lau. Oh, well, at least one is a girl. Albeit still a stereotype. You kinda get tired of the same old thing. His name is IQ Ickley. But do you know the difference between IQ and the other cartoon child prodigies? The others have personality. Personality. What does IQ have? IQ has, well, he's a kid. So I suppose that he's supposed to be a replacement for Professor Pat Pending from the original series. I would have preferred what they did in Wacky Races Forever, where the Gruesome Twosome were the new characters, and Pat Pending was still around. We at least would get another female character, and we would have another mad scientist. In comparison to, damn it, do something!
You'll never get away with this, alien!
Next you have the main three of the series. You have Peter Perfect, who is the dumb guy of the series. He's the one who gets hurt trying to prove himself, and is really self-conscious if people don't notice him. He's the wannabe hero of the series.
It's nearly as minute as Perfect's brain.
Wow, that is small. But isn't it too little for our cars?
Next there is the classic Dick Dastardly and Muttley. However, he does less dirty tricks and more standing around being snooty and complaining, and saying he doesn't want to do certain things. He's the whiner. Again, he does do some tricks, but not as much as from the other series. Come on, kid, you've got to do something interesting.
Freedom! Drat. Freedom! No, 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 Double
There's also the announcer, Brick Crashman. Look at him! Do you like him? Is it nice to have a person of a different race in this series? Isn't he great? He's only in the show for a minute until the plot takes over and they stop the race. Because the race is not the important part of the series anymore. So the announcer for the race is not necessary. I mean, look at this guy. They made him an on-screen character, yet he is the least important character of the series.
Welcome, Wacky Race fans. I'm down-home sports reporter Brick Crashman, live from Catfish Platoon County, bringing you the cross-country deep-fried Southern Ride 500.
And then there is Penelope Pitstop. She's a Southern gal. She's the voice of reason, and she doesn't do anything wrong. She's all together now, class? A Mary Sue. She's so much of a Mary Sue that her and Peter Perfect need to switch their last names, because her only quirk is her Southern mannerisms.
Oh, my stars and garters?
No, correction. Hollywood Assumption mannerisms. Seriously, guys, leave the state. There's more to the world around you. And you'll find out your stereotypes are wrong. But the whole Mary Sue thing is the reason why we need more than one female character in the show. To get away from the woman is always perfect character. But then again, we don't need a return of the Penelope Pitstop from the 1960s either. The girl who always cares about her appearance and is always running from the villain. We don't need this. But we don't need always right Penelope either. This is why I like that a show like Loud House exists. It proves that no one is perfect and all the characters are equal no matter what gender they are. And while we do have Pandora Pitstop, or Evil Penelope, she was only in 2 episodes. And only one of them where she was racing.
Now, boys, not everything has to be race. Even though this wasn't I won. Booyah, baby! That's right, I won, I'm the winner, look at me.
So what happened to the other racers? Could have political correctness play a part in who stayed and who was let go? Let's take a look at some of the old racers. There's the Anthill Mob, Italian mobster stereotypes, Rufus Roughcut and Buzzsaw, I guess Canadian lumberjack stereotypes? Is that a stereotype? Luke and Blabber Bear, inbred redneck and bear family member stereotype. Well, if that's the case, then how do you explain this?
What you think, Slicker boy? Y'all done brought that up my domicile.
Why, my boat doesn't have a scratch on it.
Oh. What are you so upset about? I'm fine.
There's the Red Max, a copy of Red Baron German stereo... That was World War I. Is that really that offensive? Sergeant Blast and Meekly, stereotype of... I have no idea. Maybe we don't like to remind people of war? And where are the Slag Brothers? Well, honestly, a lot of these racers really didn't do all that much in the original series. I don't remember Rufus Roughcut or Luke and Blabber Bear doing much. The Slag Brothers basically hit themselves over the head with their clubs and eventually their car would break apart. The Red Max and Professor Patent Pending were just there. I guess Red Max would do that thing where it bounces up and down because his car is half Red Baron plane and half car. And Professor Patent Pending would do some weird sight gag because his car can pretty much do anything. But you also have the announcer for both the original series and Fender Bender 500, which is an important part of the series.
To talk to you slags about a dented fender.
So they sacrificed a lot in this series because they took it into a different direction. But does that make it a bad series? Not really. Sure, it's nothing like the original, and every character is different, but it does have a lot of good jokes, and a few good characters, and much better animation than the original. I mean, look at those backgrounds. They are beautiful. They might be left over from a Tom and Jerry crossover movie, but they're still beautiful. This is a Wacky Races show that is not Wacky Races. It's a whole different beast. Personally, I like it. It's not what I expect, but I like it. Would I have felt Wacky Races Forever would have been a better series? Yeah. Would I think that Jim Cummings would have been a better replacement for Paul Winchell's Dick Dastardly in the voice of this series? No. This is a different type of Dick Dastardly. I think they picked the right voice for this one, but honestly, no one is ever going to completely replace Paul Winchell. Although I would love to see a female version of Tigger voiced by his daughter April Winchell. I'll be honest, with the exception of The Perils of Penelope Pitstop, I enjoyed all versions and spin-offs of the original series. And while it may not be what we are used to, the 2017 Wacky Races is this generation's Wacky Races. A little less wacky, a little more depth, and oh come on kid! We lost a mad scientist because of you! Be interesting! So that's our video. If you liked it, please hit the like and subscribe button. Also ring that bell for any future videos that I publish. You can find me on Facebook under Toonamp Art and Entertainment, find me on Twitter under Toonamp Reviews, find me on Tumblr and DeviantArt under Toonamp, or support me on Patreon under Toonamp.